their print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Bruce, and for the next hour I'll be reading from current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service from Saturday and Sunday, April 11th and 12th of 2026. Top story, an ever bigger job. Superfund site now includes more than 100 properties in Lower Town. Article by Heidi Trushell-Light. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has identified more than 100 properties in Lower Town for remediation as part of the 18-Mile Creek corridor cleanup. In an interview Friday, Mike Basil, spokesman for EPA Region 2, said, "We're continuing to try to identify where the contamination stops in residential properties. The last sampling was in November. We're going to continue to sample until we get no detects. The number keeps increasing, and it's over 100. We're probably in the 110s that will eventually be remediated." The EPA established the 18-Mile Creek Corridor Superfund site, which extends from Lower Town to Olcott, where the creek flows into Lake Ontario, in 2012, and the first phase of cleanup began in 2015. The contaminants are PCBs and heavy metals. Basil said the EPA identified 28 industrial and residential properties along or near the creek in the city in 2019 and signed a reparative decision. In 2024, Phase 2 of the remediation got underway at Upson Park and 33 residential properties along Mill, Porter, Chapel, North Adam, Butler, Dayton, and Frost Streets. Lead contamination and PCBs are a legacy of the Flint Coke and White transportation industrial operations. Basil said work at Upson Park is expected to conclude at the end of this year. This week, Cindy Bucolo, a Clinton Street resident whose property tested positive for lead contamination, told the Common Council that residents do not receive information updates from the EPA and they need to be better informed. Somebody in authority has to sit down and say, "We need answers," she said. Asked whether he is monitoring the EPA's activities in Lower Town, Mayor John Lombardi III said, "I would like to be informed. I'm not receiving anything." In response to the question of whose role it is in the city to stay on top of the cleanup status, Lombardi said, "It should be me." Basil said there had been an internal discussion about holding a public availability session this summer that would provide storyboard exhibits at tables where community members could pose questions to EPA staff. Basil said the exhibit format is preferable to an open forum. "There's a lot of members of the public that don't like to ask questions in front of a group," Basil said. "We don't even know if we're going to do it." Asked why there has been such a gap in communication, Basil said, "I actually just prepared a draft community update that will be posted to our website soon about all the operable units and what we've accomplished." A remedial investigation of the creek itself will get underway this summer and continue in 2027, he said. "We'll be doing a lot of testing in the creek and properties, and we'll be looking at the two dams in Burt and Olcott. We hope to create a feasibility study based on what we will find in the investigation and sign a record of decision on what to do for the rest of 18 Mile. At the same time, we're dealing with the cleanups at Upton Park, Flint Coat, and soil removal." Basil said the 2019 reparative decision sat on a shelf because we don't have a responsible party that's funding the cleanup. The cleanup comes out of our budget. Then we have 10 regions in the country. Here we are in 2026 when we got some bipartisan infrastructure dollars to hire Sevenson. It's not like we've been dragging our feet. We had to stop the residential property work in winter and are resuming it this month, he said. What we normally do is sit down with those residents one-on-one. We put up a diagram of their property and they're able to ask any questions about the cleanup. They will still have access to their homes. Each home is different. Some have patios, some have raised decks, some have removal of trees and shrubs. Every property is different. It's not easy to remove 2 feet of lead-contaminated soil around an existing structure. Then we put sod down. In response to a resident's question about where contaminated soil is taken, Basil said non-hazardous waste materials are sent to Modern Disposal Services, Inc., near Lewiston. The remainder of the waste that is hazardous in nature is sent to Arkwood Environmental, Rochdale, Indiana, and Waste Control Specialists, Andrews, Texas, he said. We tarp it, the soil, when they leave the property. Told that some Lower Town residents have said that trucks removing soil from Upton Park were not tarped as required, Basil said pointedly that those instances should be reported directly to him. I went through this with residents last fall, Basil said. We tarp it when it leaves the property with contaminated soil. If somebody has a problem, they should talk to Mike Basil. They should be doing it right as they're witnessing it. Basil said much of EPA's follow-up communication with residents occurs through door-to-door visits, with test results sent through the mail. So many people see that we've gotten something in the mail from the government, and they rip it up, he said. It's easier for us to go door to door. Niagara losing residents. Census estimates show all Western New York counties saw population decrease in 2025. Article by Robert Creenan. Niagara County has continued losing residents over the past year, a familiar trend across Western New York. The population estimates recently released by the U.S. Census Bureau show that all 8 counties in the region lost population from 2024 to 2025, with the overall state population remaining mostly stagnant. Niagara County lost a total of 468 residents over that period, with the number of births outnumbering the number of deaths by 682. Net migration went up by only 199 individuals, with 264 international residents offsetting the 65 people who moved out of the county. The overall estimate since April of 2020 has Niagara County losing 3,759 residents, with the number of deaths outnumbering births by 4,294. The net migration rate lists 507 individuals who moved into the county since then, with 1,206 international residents coming in to offset the 699 people moving away. Western New York as a whole lost 2,310 residents, with the 14,175 births outnumbering the 17,030 deaths. The 2,953 international migrants barely outnumbered the 2,280 residents who moved away. Chautauqua County residents lost the largest percentage of population at 0.29%, while Erie County lost the most individuals, 1,042, or 0.11%. Overall, Western New York has an estimated 1.539 million residents in 2025, about 14,000 fewer than the 2020 census estimate. For New York State as a whole, the population went up by 1,008 individuals, with the number of births outnumbering deaths by 42,815. Net migration did go down by 41,952, with 95,634 new international arrivals compared to 1,037,586 residents leaving the state. While the overall state population of 20 million is still roughly 200,000 less than it was in April of 2020, it has gone up by almost 290,000 from 2022, with most gains in counties part of the New York City metro area. Striving to stop domestic violence. State initiative looks to expand the GIVE model into intimate partner violence prevention. Article by Rick Pfeiffer. The stories and statistics are stark. 1 in 4 women in the United States will experience an incident of domestic violence in her lifetime. It's a crime that transcends age, race, and social status. It happens in cities and in suburbs, including in the Niagara region. A son slays his mother in Lockport, while a daughter stabs her mom to death in the Falls. A husband, a member of law enforcement, kills his wife in cold blood in Sanborn. Those incidents are not isolated, and a search for answers to the escalating plague of domestic violence has proved elusive. In June of 2025, New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced a record $20.2 million investment in efforts to reduce intimate partner violence in 17 counties outside New York City. One of those counties is Niagara. The funding was designed to allow the State Division of Criminal Justice Services to support 87 law enforcement agencies and community-based organizations through what is now known as the statewide Targeted Reductions in Intimate Partner Violence, STRIVE, initiative. The collaborative effort involves district attorneys' offices, sheriff's offices, local police agencies, county probation departments, and service providers. STRIVE is designed to improve the public safety response to intimate partner abuse and domestic violence, and to better address the needs of victims and survivors. Former Niagara Falls Police Detective Kathy Stack said. Stack, who led the NFPD Domestic Violence Investigations Unit, is now the local STRIVE coordinator. Modeled after the State Division of Criminal Justice Services Gun-Involved Violence Elimination Initiative, STRIVE requires each participating county to develop a comprehensive plan using one or more evidence-based strategies to hold domestic violence perpetrators accountable and increase safety for victims. Stack said the Niagara STRIVE model has 6 core elements. The program looks to identify high-risk cases, connect survivors with necessary services, use evidence-based strategies to respond to crimes, seek active community engagement, and provide continuous training to law enforcement and support staff. The final element of the initiative calls for regular monitoring and evaluation of the program. The safety of New Yorkers is my top priority, Hochul said in announcing STRIVE. I am committed to using every tool at our disposal to support anyone who has ever felt unsafe in their own home. This record funding will save lives and reduce violence by putting offenders on notice and ensuring that the highest risk victims and survivors receive the protection and support they need and deserve. In its first year, STRIVE allocated just over $900,000 to change how Niagara County law enforcement, prosecutors, victim advocates, and support services providers take on the challenges of domestic and intimate partner violence. Statewide STRIVE funded 155 positions, including investigators, detectives, crime analysts, coordinators, and advocates to support the multidisciplinary teams that were tasked with reducing domestic violence and increasing safety for survivors. In Niagara County, the funding allowed Niagara Falls Police Department to add another detective dedicated to domestic violence cases. The Niagara County Sheriff's Office was able to bring another victim advocacy on board, advocate on board, while a second victim advocate joined the domestic violence program at the YWCA of the Niagara Frontier. Dedicated lawyers and a paralegal were provided to the Niagara County District Attorney's Office, and the Niagara Intelligence and Crime Analysis Center has added a crime analyst dedicated to intimate partner violence. I have done my due diligence to build Strive out, Niagara County Sheriff's Office Domestic Violence Coordinator Stacy Seuss said, noting that the Lockport and North Tonawanda Police Departments will join the Strive initiative as it starts its second year. This summer, Seuss said its early achievements have not gone unnoticed. Lewiston Police are also reportedly considering joining the program. I think other police departments see there's a central place to address high-risk, intimate partner domestic violence cases. Seuss said, having an analyst available for tracking high-risk cases and developing a high-risk team for the entire county is going to be instrumental to help address this. Lockport Police Chief Steve Abbott said his department, which dealt with a recent domestic violence homicide, is eager to participate in the program. I think it's imperative for us to explore every option available, Abbott said. Victims of domestic violence are often intimidated and afraid to engage with law enforcement. Strive gives us the tools victims need to overcome their fears for safety. My hope is we're integrating into Strive as soon as possible. As the program prepares to enter its second year, state officials said they are hopeful it can build on first-year successes. The Strive initiative builds on your resources. Strive initiative builds on our success in fighting gun violence using the same data-driven framework as well as proven techniques for responding to intimate partner violence. New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services Commissioner Rosanna Rosado said. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun and Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. SUV crashes into Denny's. No injuries reported inside restaurant. Article by Heidi Trushell Light. The driver of a Ford Bronco jumped the sidewalk and landscaping bed in front of Denny's on South Transit Road Friday morning, crashing through a window on the front of the restaurant. The driver and passenger, both over 65, were transported to a healthcare facility for evaluation. No one was occupying the table directly inside Denny's, where the window was broken at 10:50 a.m., and no one inside the restaurant was injured. New York State Police are investigating the incident. South Lockport Volunteer Fire Company's Fire Rescue Unit and Rapids Volunteer Fire Company's Advanced Life Support Unit also responded to the scene. A restaurant employee said the dining room was closed for several hours after the incident. By early evening, the window was boarded and Denny's was serving dinner patrons. Lions Club keeps up support for Leeds Foundation. The Lions Club of Lockport this week presented a donation to Annie Leeds for the Annie Leeds Foundation, an organization that is supported for several years. The foundation provides free adventures to families with a member living with a chronic illness. These outings, known as Annie's Adventures, are designed to be accessible for those with physical or neurological limitations, providing fun experiences and lasting memories for everyone involved. Leeds, 20, is a student at Villa Maria College studying business administration and pre-law. She intends to pursue law for either social humanities or medical malpractice. Leeds is deaf, is legally blind in her left eye, and has minimal sight in her right eye. She received cochlear implants via 2 surgeries when she was 10 and 11 years old. To save what sight she has, she received bilateral corneal transplants and numerous other eye surgeries between the ages of 4 and 10 years old. Leeds also has renal dysfunction, meaning her kidneys overwork and flush nearly every liquid substance out of her body, along with all minerals, nutrition, and electrolytes. As a result, she receives nightly 12-hour IV infusions, through which she is able to retain some of what is otherwise lost through a gastrointestinal tube, which administers medication and infusions of feeding formula. I was one of the lucky ones, Leeds said. Time may not be in the hands of individuals like me, but when given an ultimatum, accept the lemons or make the lemonade. Why not choose the latter? Lockport Lions Club meetings are held on the first and third Tuesdays of each month at 6 p.m. at Camarado's Restaurant. To attend a meeting, call 716-404-9920 or email lockportlionsclubwestwny@gmail.com. For more information about the club, visit lockportlionsclubwny.com. Daredevil Museum has a new home in Niagara Falls. Operator had 2,000-pound historic barrel relocated this week. Article by Mark Shearer. A 12-foot barrel that carried 2 people over the Horseshoe Falls in Canada in 1995 made a short trip down 3rd Street on Thursday morning. The barrel, made from welded water heaters and reinforced by Kevlar and a styrofoam coating, was placed on a flatbed truck and driven down the street so it could be displayed inside the new location of the Niagara Falls Daredevil Museum. It's always stressful when you are moving a 2,000-pound piece of history, the museum's owner, Galen Bailey, said following the barrel's successful delivery. The barrel carried Daredevil Steve Trotter and his girlfriend, Lori Martin, over the falls on June 18, 1995. The couple became the second duo to successfully survive the plunge. It marked the second time Trotter went over the falls and came out alive. He previously survived the falls in 1985 when he went over in the Rig, a craft made from industrial pickle barrels that was reinforced with fiberglass and balsa wood and surrounded by truck tires' inner tubes for added shock absorption. Bailey acquired the piece years ago from Mike and Mark DeFrancesco, the former owners of the original Niagara Falls Daredevil Museum, which closed in 2013 after several years of successful operation at Rainbow Boulevard and 3rd Street. Last May, Bailey converted 1,200 square feet of space inside the storefront at 468 A 3rd Street into his own Daredevil Museum. The space showcased Trotter and Martin's barrel, the jet ski that 39-year-old Robert Overacker used in his unsuccessful attempt to tackle the Horseshoe Falls on October 1st, 1995, and an extensive collection of photographs, books, paintings, and pieces of Niagara Falls history. This year, Bailey moved all of the items in his collection to a new location at 435 3rd Street. Trotter and Martin's barrel was the last piece to go. It also presented the biggest moving challenge. Employees from American Glass were called in to remove the front window from the museum's old 3rd Street location so the barrel could be lifted out onto the street. 2 operators from Frontier Towing used a winch to pull it through the window space and load it onto a flatbed truck so it could be driven down the street to the museum's new location. After the move, Relieved Bailey described the experience as nerve-wracking. It's just getting it here successfully and not breaking any windows as we were moving it and getting out of the one shop and getting into this shop, he said. Bailey's new museum space offers several advantages that the old one didn't, including a bar. He's applying for a beer and liquor license and hopes to be able to start serving drinks to museum visitors later this year. The Niagara Falls Daredevil Museum is scheduled to open to the public at its new location on May 1st. We want to hold events, parties here, Bailey said. This will be a lot cooler space where we can have the kind of stuff in the off-season. It has more of an art gallery feel to it than for a museum. We are going to have really cool layout, and we have some new exhibits. More items will be on display at the new location, and Bailey said he's planning one exhibit dedicated to the history of organized crime in Niagara Falls and Buffalo during the era of Stefano Magaddino. Second chances take flight. Niagara Gospel Mission, Rainbow Air, partner to open doors for men rebuilding their lives. Article by Mark Shearer. When Rainbow Air Helicopter Tours needed extra help for what they hope will be a busy 2026 tourism season, they reached out to representatives of the Niagara Gospel Mission. Conversations between the two sides helped 3 residents of the mission's homeless shelter on Portage Avenue secure employment this year. The mission's executive director, John Cooper Jr., hopes it will be just the first step in a larger effort to find gainful employment for homeless men in the city through workforce development agreements like the one with Rainbow Air. We believe real transformation includes meaningful employment, Cooper Jr. said. We are grateful for community partners like Rainbow Air Helicopter Tours who are willing to invest in people and provide opportunities for our residents to step back into the workforce. This is what community partnership looks like. The 3 residents who are now working for Rainbow Air are part of the new mission internship program, which is designed to help men transition from homelessness to employment and long-term stability. While it does not rule out any potential employers, the program focuses on those who offer tourism-related work, as Cooper has lifts off from the business headquarters in Niagara Falls. The company recently entered into a workforce development agreement with the Niagara Mission Gospel, or the Niagara Gospel Mission. As Cooper has noted, mission residents are required to contribute to the shelter during their stay, and part of their contributions involve performing food preparation, routine cleanup work, or customer service duties. As Cooper has said, those same jobs are often in demand locally at area hotels, restaurants, and attractions. By partnering with private businesses like Rainbow Air, Cooper said the mission is able to broaden its efforts to equip residents with job readiness skills, workplace discipline, and character development, creating sustainable pathways to employment benefits the individuals involved as well as the local businesses and the economy, Cooper said. Rainbow Air Helicopter Tours' willingness to engage in second chance hiring demonstrates the powerful role businesses can play in community restoration, Cooper said. As Niagara Gospel Mission continues building its workforce development program, it remains committed to collaborating with organizations throughout Niagara County to help individuals move from homelessness to productive, independent living. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. From Friday, April 10th of 2026. Cambria Board clears way for Tavern Museum. Article by Heidi Trushell Light. After nearly a decade of building inspection issues and court challenges, the Cambria Town Board approved a planned unit development for the Forsyth Warren Tavern Living History Farm and Museum that allows a mix of uses on the property as a historical museum district. With nearly 50 people in attendance, the public hearing on the rezoning of the museum property at 5182 Ridge Road received supportive comments from residents, with Town Clerk Tamara Cooper reporting that she received one letter expressing opposition. "I think it's about time," said Mary Brunsell of Thrall Road, speaking in favor of the rezoning. "It's the right thing to do." John Strauss of Plank Road said, "I'm hoping they can get what they need and we can stop talking about it," eliciting a few low-key cheers from those in attendance. Duncan Rose said, "We need more things like that in Niagara County." "It seems like they're going to do the right thing," Booth said of the town board prior to the meeting. "I'm hopeful. On Monday, they seem to have been okay with what is in the museum's master plan. They're pretty much saying the property will be a living history museum and have the retail we have and can build additional buildings to support the plan. It's a little bit more than what we had approved in our special use permit. It also essentially makes the historic museum a commercial district in the eyes of banks and grants. Right now, it's residential. This has been a huge issue for us with banks. The museum might now operate on a 100-year lease of the property. If all goes well today, the museum will take full ownership of the whole historic district." In an interview last week, Town Supervisor Matt Foe said, "We think their requests at this time are reasonable. We believe we have come to an agreement for a sound path forward. We're putting the past where it belongs. Our board has significantly different relationship with the Forsyth Warren Tavern than the past board." With the rezoning approved, Booth said the museum now needs to receive site plan approval from the Town Planning Board. With Councilman Randy M. Roberts absent, the board voted unanimously in favor of rezoning the property as a historical museum district that can prepare and serve food and beverages on and off-site, operate an on-site retail antique shop, conduct agricultural activity and animal husbandry, operate an on-site distillery, and sell its products, conduct educational programs and tours, and hold special events. The lengthy resolution stated that the rezoning is in compliance with Cambria's comprehensive plan and the proposed use contributes to sensible development. It also states that the museum preserves and protects the community's character, serves as the epitome of the town's agriculture heritage, and provides a unique immersive experience in the heart of the wine trail. Abe Platt, the town's attorney, said the Niagara County Planning Board issued a recommendation in favor of the measure in February, and the Town Planning Board was also in support of the rezoning. The town has conducted an environmental review, Platt said, and found no negative impacts from the museum plan. As a development district, Platt said, this is a very rare situation in that the expressed goal is to restore and maintain property rather than develop it. In my opinion, this is probably how it should have happened a decade ago. Forsyth Warren Tavern Living History Farm and Museum is located in an intact 19th century tavern at Warren Corners, set on 5 acres of farmland. From the beginning, museum founders Booth, his mother Elizabeth Booth, who died in 2021, and his partner John Newman were beset with bureaucratic barriers erected by the town. To receive any legal support, Booth had to resort to taking Cambria's Zoning Board of Appeals to State Supreme Court in 2023. Justice Frank Sedita found that the town had illegally revoked Booth's special use permits that allowed private events, antique sales, and establishment of a museum on the property. Now, Booth said, we should be good to go with the museum's full vision. On the right track. Lock Tender Team takes on another downtown building rehab project. Article by Heidi Trushell-Light. The development partnership that renovated the building at 4 Lock Street for the Lock Tender Tap Room has begun an overhaul of the adjoining building using a similar approach. As Harrison Development, Chuck Bell and Michael Zimmerman purchased the corner building at 7 Ontario Street in late 2024 and are now renovating the 1880s structure into a food establishment with upper floor apartments. The partners have both worked as city economic development directors, Bell for the city of Lockport and Zimmerman for the city of North Tonawanda. This is a pretty big undertaking for us, Bell said. If we can stabilize this building and fill it with tenants, we will be happy. I've always been fixated on the locks since I worked for the city. Bell said the property was attractive as another opportunity to round out the Locks Heritage District. The vision the city has to make Lockport a destination is really exciting, Zimmerman said. We want to be a part of it. After purchasing the building for $85,000, Bell said the project received a $500,000 Restore New York grant in late 2024. We definitely would not be able to make the numbers work without it, Bell said. The total project cost, including the acquisition, is just over $1 million. Workers have already scraped off stucco from the corner building, and a bricklayer was filling an opening that was made in an exterior wall Thursday. Bell said crews would strip off the remaining white paint to reveal the brick. The experience next door led us to believe there would be something interesting underneath, Bell said of the discovering arches in the brick front of the Lock Tender. The front of 7 Ontario Street also features flat-faced Doric wood columns embedded in the brick, which the partners want to preserve. It was vacant for quite a while and was once used for an office, Bell said. We definitely want to do food and beverage. We don't have an operator yet. Bell said the Ontario Street side of the building can be used for sidewalk cafe tables. The partners said they are open to any style of food service, whatever complements and fits in with the neighborhood, Bell said. The building has already been gutted inside, and restroom space has been studded out. A gravel-floored garage in the back will be finished to house a full-service kitchen and have a staircase up to 2 one-bedroom luxury apartments on the 2nd floor. Bell said the apartments feature an original brick arch in the interior along with high-grade appliances. They're pretty nice sized, he said of the apartment layouts. We really have a shortage of housing. I'm really pleased to see the demand for 4 Lock Street, he said of the finished apartments above the Lock Tender. I think we're on the right track. Local manslaughter sentencing delayed. Woman seeks reduced prison term under domestic violence law. Article by Rick Pfeiffer. Sentencing for a Niagara Falls woman who pleaded guilty to stabbing a man to death in 2024 has been postponed after her public defenders filed a motion asking to have her potential prison time determined under the provisions of New York's Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act. Chanel Nicole Groom, 38, pleaded guilty during a January hearing to a single count of first-degree manslaughter in a plea deal with prosecutors. She was originally charged with second-degree murder. Groom was facing up to 18 years behind bars, but Niagara County Court Judge Carolyn Witozak will now determine whether her possible sentence should be reduced to as little as 5 years under that DVSJA. Witozak will hold a hearing on July 6th to determine whether Groom qualifies for a sentence reduction. The DVSJA, which was signed into law by Governor Andrew Cuomo in 2019, is intended to expand the situations that judges can consider in determining appropriate sentences for domestic by domestic violence survivors who commit criminal offenses. It can be applied both in pending criminal cases and in motions for resentencing. The law requires that a person must show that they were a victim of abuse at the time of their criminal offense. The abuse may be physical, sexual, or psychological in nature, committed by a family member or person in the victim's household, and must be a significant contributing factor in the criminal conduct. Niagara County prosecutors had no comment on the filing of the motion. 2 weeks ago, Niagara County Court Judge John Odoraveri denied a request from another Niagara Falls woman seeking to have her 15-year state prison term for manslaughter reduced under the DVSJA. In a 9-page decision, Ottaviano concluded that Ashley Berger did not meet the requirements of the Act and was not eligible to have her current sentence reduced. Ottaviano's ruling followed 5 days of testimony between June and October of 2025 in an effort by Berger, 42, who has already served 10 years of her original sentence, to gain either a reduction in her original prison term or her outright release from behind bars for the murder of Richard Christian. Grooms admitted to killing Timothy Day, 36, of Buffalo, during a confrontation inside her Niagara Falls home in the early morning hours of June 1st, 2024. Niagara County District Attorney Brian Seaman, who handled the prosecution of the case, called the slaying senseless. This domestic incident was quickly escalated by the defendant to extreme violence, Seaman said. There was no reason for Mr. Day to lose his life that night. Niagara Falls Police Patrol officers were called to the home on the 1300 block of Vanderbilt Avenue at 2:35 a.m. for a report of a domestic disturbance. When the officers arrived, they said they found Day suffering from a stab wound to his chest. Day was described as non-responsive and was rushed to Niagara Falls Memorial Medical Center, where he was later pronounced dead. Law enforcement sources said the stabbing occurred during a domestic disturbance between the victim, groom, and another woman. State launches repairs tied to area Deltasonic entrances. DOT, car wash detergents are a factor in roadway deterioration. Article by Mark Shearer. The State Department of Transportation is coordinating an effort to reinforce entrances in front of 5 Deltasonic locations in western New York. In Niagara Falls, beleaguered motorists should soon get some relief on a particularly bad stretch of the 7900 block of Niagara Falls Boulevard, where there's a Deltasonic location. State DOT spokesperson Ryan Whalen said the paving work will be done under an agreement with the owner of the local Deltasonic franchises, Benderson Development. He said the first round of repairs is expected to begin with the Clarence Deltasonic location and move on from there. Our hope is that they are going to replace them all this year, Whalen said. Niagara Falls Department of Public Works employees placed rough road signs in front of the local Deltasonic location earlier this year for good reason. The traffic lane closest to the combination car wash and motor vehicle service station is riddled with potholes and crevices. The adjacent lane isn't much better. In a similar situation at other Deltasonic locations, state officials say detergents used inside the car wash that run off onto nearby roadways are a contributing factor in their degradation. It's creating bad roads in front of Deltasonics across the area, Whalen said. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun and Journal on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. A look back and ahead for the Erie Canal boat. History Center hosting April 15th program by Buffalo Maritime Center staff. Join Chelsea Moore and Eddie Niblo from the Buffalo Maritime Center at the Niagara History Center at 2 p.m. Wednesday. Which has already taken place. Visitor faces drugged driving charges. Driver and child were injured in Newfane crash last Wednesday. A North Carolina man faces a felony charge following a crash at Day and Wheeler Roads in Newfane on Wednesday. The Niagara County Sheriff's Office reports that about 6:15 p.m. Wednesday, a 2018 Dodge Ram pickup traveling north on Day Road ran a stop sign at the intersection and struck a 2025 Chevy Equinox that had been traveling east on Wheeler Road. Following the collision, the pickup truck rolled over several times, ejecting two occupants, a 13-year-old passenger and a 50-year-old driver, neither of whom were wearing seatbelts. They both sustained serious but non-life-threatening injuries, deputies said. The driver of the Equinox also sustained serious but non-life-threatening injuries. The driver of the pickup, John Paul Oliver, 50, of Franklintown, North Carolina, was determined to be under the influence of drugs, deputies said, and was charged with DWI by drugs, aggravated driving while intoxicated under Leandra's law, and endangering the welfare of a child, as well as multiple vehicle and traffic violations. Deputies said additional charges are pending. As Oliver was transported to a local hospital for treatment, he is scheduled to appear in court at a later date. All other injured parties were also transported to local hospitals for treatment. The accident remains under investigation by the Niagara County Sheriff's Office. City hiring outside help to detect water leaks. Report suggests 75% water loss rate. Union grieves outsourcing of its members' work. Article by Heidi Trushell-Light. Catherine Fogel, 4th Ward Alderman, cast the only dissenting vote on a Common Council resolution Wednesday approving a professional services agreement that has already prompted a union grievance. With 2nd Ward Alderman Marcus White absent, the council approved paying Ground Penetrating Radar Systems, LLC, up to $20,000 to detect water leaks. The city has identified the need to locate potential water leaks within the system in order to reduce water loss, improve system efficiency, and prevent further infrastructure deterioration. The resolution states, these services constitute professional and technical services which are not subject to competitive bidding requirements pursuant to the city's procurement policy. Fogel had protested the resolution during the council's work session prior to the meeting and appeared frustrated as the resolution was read and approved. We have a machine that detects leaks, Fogel said, of a leak noise correlator that can find leaks without digging. The union is not going to be happy with this. We don't settle our grievances. So are we just going to pay again? During the work session, Fogel called out to Simon Chambers, Vice President of City Local 855 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, asking whether the union would grieve the opportunity for city workers to do the work. It's another grievance, Chambers said. I've already filed it. In an interview, Chambers said our contract states in Article 19, Section 13, that the employer agrees not to contract or subcontract out any work, duties, or tasks performed by employees covered by this agreement. They can't contract out the jobs we already do, and that's what they just hired people to do. A leak noise correlator is what we use all the time to track down a water leak. There's water leaks all the time. It's an old water system. They're trying to say that doesn't explain the amount of water they're losing. We have guys at the water department who have correlating devices, sonar devices, and magnetic devices to hear water leaks underground. The city is paying up to $20,000 to do that work now. Responding after the meeting to the question of how many city union grievances are pending, Corporation Counsel David Blackley said, "I couldn't tell you." Mike Marino, CEO of Nussbaumer and Clark, Inc., the engineering contractor for the city, said 1.6 billion gallons of city water is unaccounted for, according to a report. The amount makes up 75% of the water produced, with only 25% of water earning revenue. There's a lot of unmetered water in the city, at the outdated swimming pool and sprinklers in the parks, Chambers said. The leak detection service was listed on a council meeting agenda distributed April 1st. Asked whether there had been an opportunity to talk with the AFSCME local leadership ahead of the vote, Mayor John Lombardi III said there was a meeting between Clayton Dimmick, Director of Highways, Parks, and Water Distribution, and union leaders on the matter. From what I understand, they were working on it, he said. Lombardi said he didn't attend that meeting and was led to believe that there were no objections. Asked who was designated to report the results to him, Lombardi said it was Dimmick. "I may not have been fully informed," Lombardi said, adding that he speaks to Dimmick nearly every day, and perhaps in this case, it may have slipped his mind. "Maybe I was wrong in not asking the question," Chambers said. There was no meeting that took place with AFSCME employees on this issue. Following the meeting, Fogel said the vote was difficult because the city water department is short-staffed. But why not pay overtime? Or sell the machine, she said. Kevin Kirchberger, alderman at large, said 2 employees in the Highways, Parks, and Water Distribution Department are retiring this month, and the city is still seeking applicants to cover pending vacancies. Kirchberger said that he is no longer chair of the council's Highway and Parks and Water Distribution Committee. First Ward Alderman John Craig, who seconded Third Ward Alderman Roland O'Malley's sponsorship of the resolution, said he supported the measure because we have got so many leaks and not enough workers. We may have the equipment to do it. We're losing millions of gallons of water to leaks. We can use personnel to fix them. It's a support to water distribution. Shaking his head, Fifth Ward Alderman John Wiley said he only learned on Wednesday that the city has leak detection equipment. Now we're going to pay a company to use the same equipment we have? He said. Why aren't we trying to get the workforce to do the work? Even if they find the leaks, we've got to fix them without enough staff. Wiley said he voted in favor of the outside vendor because of urgency. It is something we need to do sooner than later. He said, we can't afford not to tackle the leaks. Talk about a heavy lift. Massive transformer bound for Somerset Data Center by way of barge and big rig. Article by Stephen M. Wallace. The 230-ton transformer that will help power TeraWulf's new AI data center in Somerset arrived at Headley Boatyard by barge on Wednesday morning. Following inspection of the special trailer and rig that will carry it on Lake Road, the transformer is set to be delivered to the Lake Mariner Data Center campus today. The transformer, manufactured in China, was loaded onto a barge in Ontario, Canada, and shipped to Olcott via the St. Lawrence Seaway and Lake Ontario. Pennsylvania-based Buckingham Heavy Transport was hired to bring the transformer to Somerset. One of its 48 wheeled trailers arrived at Headley Boatyard last weekend and waited in storage for the transformer's arrival, which was held up temporarily by an ice jam in Ontario, according to Buckingham Transport Specialist Rick Malloyd. Crews from Buckingham worked for several hours Wednesday to transfer the transformer from the barge to the rig. While the rig was backed onto the barge, cranes lifted the transformer off the barge and set it on the trailer for securing. Once it's cleared for transport, the loaded rig will drive off the barge directly onto the roadway. Headley Boatyard operator David Headley was glad to host the transfer. This is what I'm trying to build here. Opportunities for the Alcott Harbor and the area to grow and prosper, he said. The trailer and rig are to be inspected by New York State Police, which will also provide escort during the approximately 1-hour road trip to the Lake Mariner campus. A TerraWolf representative stationed at the boatyard on Wednesday said the transformer will help power computers and figure out AI and algorithms more quickly. The crypto mining portions of the campus employed 52 people on a full-time basis as of October of 2025, and when the AI data centers are up and running, the number of FTEs could rise to 150, company executives have said. Eaglet dies at Iroquois refuge nest. 6-day-old chick was knocked from safe area by its mother. One of the eaglets being watched by a camera at Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge has died, the Refuge Friends group announced Tuesday. It's so easy and natural to develop parental instincts for these chicks if you watch them for any length of time, said Richard Moss, president of the Iroquois Friends group. That makes a development like this hard to process. It's a difficult lesson that observing nature is not a place for sentiment. The eaglet was knocked out of the nest, bull proper, by its mother's foot on Monday morning and never made it back to get warm. The chick's thermoregulation had not developed enough yet to allow it to survive outside the bowl. The 6-day-old chick, the first eaglet to hatch, appeared healthy before the incident, was the largest, and had been getting the most food. The adults seemed largely oblivious that anything was amiss, despite the eaglet still being in the larger part of the nest and very close to the bowl. This is quite rare, said Emma De Leon, vice president of the Friends Group. It can be tough to watch nature in action, but we observed some unusual behaviors today that we're able to share with some eagle experts. The second eaglet to hatch, INWR2, still looks strong. The parents are behaving normally with it, and the Friends Group is still hopeful that the third egg may hatch soon, Moss and De Leon said. You can watch the nest camera streaming through the link at the Friends website, FINWR.com. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal. We read from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal every Saturday at 5 p.m. Your reader has been Bruce. Thank you for listening, and as always, make it a great day.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a reading of the Wall Street Journal off-duty section. At 7 o'clock, we got Harper's Magazine, and at 8 o'clock, we have Sports Illustrated. Stay tuned for these readings and more throughout the day. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio readers broadcast daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability who are provided reading radios. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio reading broadcasts throughout the city of Buffalo, Western New York, and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability